Real women.
Real talk.
Real messy.
This is Messy Midlife.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Messy Midlife. I have missed you. And of course, I come back after being gone for a couple of weeks, and Eliza's gone. So, hi, Karen. How are you?
I missed you a lot. Had some nice chats with Eliza, and we definitely felt your absence. So I'm really glad you're back. And next week we'll be
We
back
should all be back next week. Yes. But, I'm glad that we've decided to move forward with recording as long as there's two of us around, because the reality is this is just conversations among friends, and we're not always going to be able to be present. And we need to be able to exemplify in what we're doing, since this is authentic, right? This is not scripted anything. This isn't a planned anything. It's like having a chat with your friends over coffee or a glass of wine or whatever, right?
Real life, day to
And
day. Yep.
we need to be able to be okay with the joy of missing out as much as we need to be able to be okay with it in our real lives, right? Making those choices for the things that are in alignment with what we know we need, what our values are. And so I'm grateful that I listened to myself on a week that I was not planning to be gone. I knew I was going to be gone last week. I was not planning to be gone 2 weeks ago. And I had to listen to the inner turmoil I was having and listen to the voice that kept coming up to say, you can't do all of this. You think you can do all of this, and you can't do all of this. What do you have to set down? And it kept coming up, you can't record. You can't record. And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing and fighting against it. And I finally it was through talking to my mom as I was finishing up my walk with my dogs and going around the house trying to get ready for a camping trip my family was going on, that I was finally able to say to her, it's like, if I can't talk, I don't know what I'm going to do when my mom passes, because how am I going to figure anything out? It's always through talking to my mom that I have the best insights, and like the truth funnels itself through my mother, not because she's speaking, but because she's listening. And I think maybe that's what I'm like, who is going to listen to me with such an open, receptive, loving place when my mom isn't around anymore? And I had no idea I was going to go there today, but it was talking to my mom that helped me see for myself and connect with that inner knowing that I needed to stop and cut out 3 of the 4 things that my ridiculous ADHD brain thought it could fit in to a small period of time. That inner knowing was correct. It took me almost the entire morning to do the one thing I needed to do, but I was able to do it without rushing and frantic feelings or anything like that. So maybe I could have done more than I did, but I would have been miserable while I was doing it versus just doing it. And it actually honestly helped my husband too, because he said he was trying to fit 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag for the morning with all the things he needed to do. And so after I decided to say, ladies, I can't chat today, I'm choosing, not have to, but I'm choosing to do this. This is, because my health, my family, my business, and you guys are part of my health and my mental health. But sometimes you have to make choices when things that are high value are competing. As soon as I told him I'm not going to record, so I've got time and I can help with some of these things, his stress started to melt away too.
Yeah.
So,
and how valuable that is, especially before a vacation, that everybody start to ease into vacation mode, because it takes time to metabolize all of that stress and cortisol that we're holding for days and weeks and months. And usually that first day of vacation can be a little bit rough. So if you can start it earlier.
First couple of days sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Like we've got the issue where as a parent, especially, like even before being a parent, but as a parent, you have to do a bunch of things to go do other things, to then do more things and still just have all of your things you have to do while you're vacationing. And you have to, maybe not everybody feels this way, but a lot of women do feel responsible for how other people are feeling. I've learned a long time ago, and I have not been very good at following my own lesson that I got, that I need a couple of weeks to be able to unwind and actually relax, like get to the place that I feel like I can relax, and then do the relaxing before I start to ramp back up because I'm anticipating the return.
Yeah, I had a little bit of that when Mike and I went to Switzerland, and it was a very quiet place, which I really appreciated on this trip in particular. We usually have pretty exciting destinations, and Switzerland was just really quiet. And I was worried before we left that 2 weeks was not going to be enough, which is
Mhm.
not, it's not I don't know, that worried me, that I was thinking, wow, 2 weeks isn't going to be enough, but it was. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of it was that it was so quiet. It's strange that that's the main descriptor for the trip, but there was just this calmness, not just auditorily, but it just the stillness in my heart. And
Yeah.
maybe it was being away in Switzerland. I mean, the capital of neutrality. Maybe there was something energetically there, but I came back and I did feel restored, and I'm so grateful for that.
Can we also just acknowledge that you went on a trip, just you and Mike,
Without, yeah,
without
no
your
child or my mom.
or your
Yeah,
mom who
yeah,
frequently
the
goes with you?
bookend.
I'm planning a trip over the summer with my mom and my daughter and my husband, and the more people you have, the more relationships you have to manage, right? So it's like the same sort of thing that can happen no matter how good and supportive and loving your marriage is. Sometimes you get kind of a break when your spouse is gone.
Mhm.
Even if if you're doing all of the adulting, you're doing all of the parenting, all of that, sometimes it's just a little bit of a break because you're the one that's responsible for the grown-up stuff and you only have one relationship you have to navigate instead of your relationship with your child's relationship with your husband, your relationship with your husband, and the relationship of all three of you together and how things interact. And there's no expectations of dividing up the adult work. It's just, okay, I got to do the grown-up stuff and you got to do the
Mhm.
kid stuff.
And there's no sandwich stuff, right? Like
Mhm.
tending to the young
Mhm.
while managing the old. That was very, very liberating.
Aside from me being gone and you missing me terribly, what's on your mind?
Well, I had this moment yesterday that I wanted to chat with you about, because I'm curious if it's ADHD, if it's perimenopause, if it's perfectionism, if it's a mom thing, because I feel like it's gotten a lot worse since becoming a parent. It was a very simple thing. I was trying to get myself downstairs. That's it. That's all this was. I had laundry and a water bottle and dishes that had been left upstairs by my child, and all of these things that needed to go downstairs, and I'm strategizing how I'm going to do all of this at once. And that's what I do. I try to make every effort be as efficient as possible, and then I bump up against terrible inefficiency because now I'm spending time trying to figure out the logistics. And I had this moment of clarity, which I'm so grateful for. I thought, what if I don't do anything other than get myself downstairs? It was a moment of permission that I don't often experience. I want to make sure that I check as many things off of my list as possible and also not forget, because once I'm downstairs,
That
that's
doesn't
probably
exist
too late.
anymore. It's gone. Yep.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a self protective mechanism, and it doesn't exist because I have ADHD. It doesn't exist because now I'm with the rest of my family and I am getting bombarded with wonderful, lovely conversation or requests or problems or, messy kitchen or whatever. And that's where I do feel like since having a child, it has gotten more severe. I got to do so many things. There's so many more things to do, and the distractions that come in are rapid fire. So I wanted your perspective on,
Mhm.
what do you think it is? It's probably going to be all of the above because we're real life human beings that are complex.
Yes.
And I also wanted to take a moment to celebrate whatever that was, whatever that clarity of, you know, you could just walk down the stairs without a pile so high that you can't even see where you're stepping, and not
Mhm.
stressed out about how you're going to strategize all of the things to get
Mhm.
to your lunch or whatever
Right.
it was.
So you're right. I don't think it matters, and I think it's all of the
Yeah.
above, right? And as a homeopath, I have to say, and as a naturopathic doctor, I have to say, labels only help us a tiny bit, and we get so attached to and grasp for labels. And I understand that, especially in the conventional medical model that we're most used to, that a label is necessary to give us the standard of care for treatment. But a label is labeling a section of us. So, like, here's my ADHD, here's the bipolar disorder, here's the perimenopause, over here's the endometriosis, like it's the labels also make like disconnect us in a lot of ways, right?
Fragment us. Yep.
And so I think that the labels are only useful if it helps us get a specific support we need, and then we set it aside. And we say, this is Karen. Karen had paralysis because of perfectionism and brain fog and overwhelm and. So does it really matter what you label it as or what you can blame? Is there a solution to it? I don't know that there is, beyond the things that you're already doing. I don't think that there's like one more piece. I feel like we're looking for one more piece that's going to make the life that we're currently living or the task we're currently trying to do easier, when maybe the question is this a task I need to be worried about? And that's a place that I'm reluctantly wrapping my head around with all of the things that I expect of myself, which is what I was just hearing from you. Like, you expected a whole lot of things from yourself.
Absurdly so.
And things that were not your responsibility.
That's what's absurd.
Why wasn't it like you go downstairs and you tell your son, hey, those dishes that you needed to bring down are waiting for you. Go get them.
Right.
So how many things are we carrying that we're then expecting of ourselves that aren't really ours to carry?
I want to comment on that really quickly because I think a lot of moms can relate to, if I delegate, how much more time and energy in terms of raising a good functional human being, 100%, that is the right thing to do. Those are your dishes. You take care of them. And I agree and I do it. And there are times and moments where the delegation, and with a child, it's the back and forth around that. You're well aware. And with an adult, it's, oh, okay, I'll do that. And then does it get done? Or if it's something more complex than just dishes, it's having to teach them how to do it and the time that takes. If I just do it myself, it'll get done and I won't have it on my mental load anymore. Short term, it's beneficial, and long term, it keeps us in this really lopsided situation that is certainly not helping me. But short term, it's helping me.
Yes. How many of our long-term problems and the things that build up and tear us down further and further, so that we're at the point that we need a minimum of 2 weeks to have any possibility of relaxing, because we're so tightly wound and so overwhelmed that, and it's mental load that we're carrying as much as anything else, that how much are we creating our own beds that we're sleeping in because of our unwillingness to have a little bit of discomfort right now that builds up to long-term discomfort that we're just not connecting with. It's this whole concept of future self being separate from you, and our future self is always so much more capable. I think we might have even talked about this before on an episode. I don't remember. That our future self is always so much more capable, as a fantastic sleep routine, is not distractible, has no cravings for chocolate or salty, crunchy things, has an impeccable diet, works out like an Olympian every day, and has like the no issues with saving money or making good financial decisions. And so today we don't have to worry about it because future self has our backs, except that future self is then angry at past self for not thinking about them. And I have had to lean into this sometimes, and it's been really useful when I think about future self as a separate person, because it's so much easier to say yes to somebody else than to say yes to me.
Right.
And so if I'm saying yes to future self, it's easier for me to do something hard today for a different person, it's future Jen, than it is for me to think about me. And so it does help me sometimes to do it. But I agree, there's some times where I'm just like, I'm done and I'm overwhelmed from all of the things that past Jen already did to me, that today Jen doesn't have any capacity to take the time to do something for future Jen. And so I just pick up the dirty socks and I just put them where they need to go, instead of asking the person whose dirty socks aren't in the right place to put them where they belong.
Yeah.
So I get it. I get it.
We've definitely had that conversation. I don't know if it was a podcast, but we have had the
We've
conversation
talked about
of,
it for sure.
yeah, future self and conceptualizing ourselves as a separate person. It is helpful. Just even thinking about future self is
But
helpful.
why? What, like I get that it is, but like, can we get to the place that we don't have to live a life that we have to escape from
Place,
for
yeah,
2+ weeks, where we think that we can't eat, that 2 weeks away from our existence is necessary for us to feel okay coming back to our existence? Why do we have to look at ourselves as a separate person for it to be okay to say, yes, I need this, or yes, I want this? Why
yeah.
can't we just do it for ourselves today? It's a thing that's come up in therapy for me a lot lately, is the fact that I am allowed to have a self. I am allowed to have needs. I am allowed to have desires. I am allowed to have things that are just for me, and I don't always have to be the person to blame for anything that goes wrong, and other people can have accountability, and it doesn't make me a terrible person. We tell so many women for so many years that they need to be selfless. We are literally telling people not to have a self. But then we're saying also self-care. But most of the things that people talk about for self-care aren't self-care. It's people trying to sell you something,
Yeah.
but it's not taking care of yourself. There's a
Yeah.
book that I read that I'm not surprised that I connect with. I think it was called Real Self-Care, that is based in acceptance and commitment therapy, which I'm a big fan of. And a lot of that was about saying no, telling your friends you can't show up for a podcast, telling your friends you can't go out to dinner. I had to tell friends that I couldn't go to take my kid to a thing with their kids, like a fun thing, because I just had to say, I have other fun things that I'm trying to pack in all the fun on the weekends, but this will not be fun if it's too stressful, and this will be too stressful. And thankfully, one of the moms helped me see that and was like, you're trying to fit in, as Kyle said, 10 pounds of shit in a 10-pound bag.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I hear you. Yesterday, when I was battling with my perfectionism and at all, I stayed home from a soccer game. And that's really hard for me to do. We have a
Mhm.
lot of soccer. I just saw a reel that was like, I didn't play soccer as a child, but somebody should have told me that, there's baseball season and there's football season. And if you do soccer, it's just soccer all the time. And so it's not like there aren't many opportunities. As a matter of fact, we've got a tournament next weekend. I was curious about your take on the fragmenting, which I loved your take on that, very Western paradigm of specializing on, is it mental health? Is it hormone health? Is it whatever? It's me. It's my
Mhm.
health. And my
Mhm.
health right now is in a place that feels paralyzing, right? Like I
Mhm.
think you nailed that. And the thing that forced me to be able to have more grace for myself was that I stayed back from that game, and I had to lay down because I was having a lot of physical pain, and my body said, this, that's enough, right? And it's like the people pleasing goes until my body says, I'm going to have to step in here.
Mhm.
It was early enough, and this is really still what I'd like to celebrate. It was early enough that I didn't throw my back out. I
Yeah.
wasn't at the place where I couldn't move, but I could tell that I was quickly approaching that. And so I stayed back from the game. And then later I had that experience of, you don't have to do all of this. The bigger solution is, of course, doing the deep self-care work of going to therapy and figuring out all of these patterns around putting ourselves last, and people pleasing. Like, as a mom, I want to be there for my child. I want to be
Mhm.
there cheering for him. I want to experience his game. He works hard. He loves to play. And I love seeing that joy in him. I love that he sees me. It's very important to me individually. And it's also something that is very important to me in my identity as a mom. And
Yeah.
that's just one, right? And then you can copy and paste, apply that to my patients, copy and
Mhm.
paste, apply that to my marriage, copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. And it's so much.
So that's why I had like 10,000 thoughts of different things. I came back around to why you called that perfectionism instead of overwhelm. And I think you might have just touched on it, because it's about who you feel like you are and who you need to be. You were just trying to do too many things at once, and you couldn't figure out how to do it all in one fell swoop. and that paralyzed you. I was curious for where did the word perfectionism, because that's not the word I would have chosen for myself experiencing the same thing that you were describing, at least as I understand it.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I think it is about who I feel I should be or need to be, and I mean, there's nothing that tugs at my heartstrings more than my child, right?
Mhm,
As a parent, and I wish I could say it was only that. It
mhm,
is so rampant in my life. To take a moment to sit and think about, oof, it's heavy.
yeah, because you said earlier, like, it got worse in motherhood, and
Yeah.
I feel like motherhood is something that's just so it's just so much of so many
Mhm.
things,
Ugh,
and there's all of the feelings that you could ever possibly have, you have, and they
yeah.
feel bigger when it's related to your child than it feels with anything else. Like I can't imagine ever, well, I know I will never love anybody the way I love my daughter. And just thinking about missing out on something for her or setting a boundary or saying I matter, myself matters, and I need this thing. Thinking about those times when it's just me and her, if her dad is gone for something, and I'm feeling tapped out, overstimulated, overwhelmed, and I just need a bit of a break. And she's really wanting my attention, and I just can't offer it to her in a like a full way and like the way that I really want to. And when I do reach that limit and I say, I just need a little bit. Oh my God, the heartbreaking for, I don't know why it's so heartbreaking. But when she goes, okay, mommy. And I don't know why that breaks my heart so much more than if she were to have a tantrum, because I don't know if it's just the acceptance. And I'm like, oh, she's disappointed. And maybe it's the fear that she's disappointed and she's suppressing it, or that like there's the worry of all the things that are going to happen with your child based off of your parenting. And we put so much on ourselves to do better, be better,
Yeah.
and try to get it right, that I think parenting and becoming a parent just amplifies all of the
Yes.
things that already
It
existed.
it amplifies it, making it really painful at times, but because it's our child, it pushes me to want to understand and figure this out to be, ironically, a better parent by
Yeah.
setting boundaries and figuring out, because like I mentioned earlier, it's not unique to
Yeah.
my motherhood experience. It's amplified. It's
Yes.
highlighting
Yeah.
this issue that I have where I want to show up in every relationship in a way that
In an
would
inhuman
require,
way is what
in
I'm
an
hearing.
inhuman way. Yes. Yeah.
You want to show up as a perfect
Absolutely.
cyborg, a perfect
Yes.
robot
Yes.
that is not actually human.
And
And
it's
we
all,
all
yeah. Yeah. It would only be possible if that was the only thing in my life,
and even
right?
that wouldn't be possible, because then you
Probably
would
not.
be, because what would
Hierarchy.
happen is if it was the only thing in your life, then you would be upset about the other things that you don't have that you're doing in your life.
Right. Right.
Because you can't be a complete person if you've got only one thing that you're doing. At least
Hmm.
you. I mean, maybe some people can. Maybe that works for some people. You as an individual would never feel like you were complete, and you would have something still interfering with being that perfect part of yourself that
Yeah.
you're trying to be. So I'm curious, maybe this is going too deep and I'm not the therapist here, you are, but I'm curious
Don't sell
what
yourself
is
short.
beneath it, because like I said, it wasn't feeling overwhelmed, it wasn't feeling overstimulated, it wasn't feeling angry, and it was maybe there was even self anger or something coming in there, because you called it perfectionism.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was a microcosm of what I experience in
Every day.
everything. Yeah, everything all the time. And I remember before I loosened my grip on the whole situation and started having access to my reasonable mind again, I thought it's everything everywhere all at once. This
Hmm.
keeps coming up in our conversations. And I think that it was a manifestation of how I feel I need to show up in all of my relationships and in all of my tasks. It's not even just relationships. I think it's particularly amplified if I feel like I'm letting somebody down. But a social media post or a text message, a happy birthday text
Hmm.
message, or
Mhm.
just simple everyday things. It takes so much energy because of who I think I need to show up as. And then if I don't show up that way, what does that say about me? Is that not
Mhm.
really who I am? Am I not a caring person? I know I'm a caring person. But what if it's not perceived as such?
So it's about what other people think about you.
I'm guessing it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Because did you really care that much about like what would have been the worst case scenario if you'd taken 3 trips to get down the stairs?
I
Or if
mean,
you'd gotten
the day turned I meant to mention that. I got everything done. Everything got done. I didn't take a thing with me downstairs.
Mhm.
But the part of me that felt like it was life or death to craft the perfect, most time and energy efficient way to juggle these 8 to 10 items on my to-do list all at once would not let it go.
Yeah.
And thought that it really was that critical. And when I had the space to be able to say, no,
Yeah.
I can just take care of myself to get down the stairs and listen to it because I feel like I have that voice come up for me often.
Mhm.
And that other part that's like, no, we got to get all this done at once just kind of smacks it aside. And I don't get to experience that. And I think reflecting on the fact that everything got done, literally
Mhm.
all the things
Mhm.
on the list got done. I didn't forget about any of them. So that
Mhm.
fear is overblown. And I felt peace in
Yeah.
giving myself permission to create some space because I was
Yeah.
also very aware of the fact that my body wasn't messing around.
Yeah.
It was about to have a temper tantrum if I didn't listen.
So, as you and I have talked about plenty of times, you're aware, like my body has a tendency to be my emergency brakes. I get migraines and my migraines are my emergency brakes. And that's what a friend in med school called them. And she was right. Anytime my brain got going too fast or I was doing too much and I'd get a migraine. So I had to stop. And I feel like my body has been escalating and escalating and escalating. So, I spent some time in the hospital last year and this year's not as bad, but I have had 2 emergency room visits over the summer and potentially having another surgery. I working really hard to get to the place that I can listen to myself and like my actual self, not what I
Yeah.
think people are thinking about me, but my actual self and recognize and connect with my values, trying really hard to get a better understanding of what time actually means because I do not seem to understand time, but ADHD was missed, obviously. I do not understand how time works. I always think I can get 5 things done in the amount of time it really will take one thing to get done. And sometimes I can get lost in something and it will just 5 hours are gone and I thought it was 2 minutes.
Mhm.
So, but my bigger problem is more, I guess it's called time optimism, that I think I can get more done than I can realistically get done.
Oh,
So I'm often listening to a list, not me, or I'm listening to my story about what other people are going to think about me or what other people expect of me or from me. My story about my self worth that doesn't seem to think that just me as a human matters and that it's only about what I'm doing for somebody else or what I'm providing or how I'm making them feel that matters and just me as a person trying to understand that that matters too. And I hate that I hear some similar patterns with you, maybe not to the same degree. And I'm hoping that you're catching them before they would get to the degree that they are with me, that it requires a hospital stay for me or a surgery for me to feel like I can actually rest and
I've been
relax.
I've been thinking about you quite a bit as I'm navigating this because you've been very open about that and your emergency breaks. And my back is definitely an emergency break for me.
Yes.
And I think it's becoming a higher priority topic. I've been in therapy for a very, very long time, and this
Hmm.
comes up all the time. And
Hmm.
as much of a proponent of self accountability, and you have the things that you were dealt and you move forward and you figure them out and you heal what you can. I'm reflecting as you're talking about this and integrating the people pleasing and the low self prioritization. This memory of the narcissistic traits that floated around my developmental years in my home, how that may have contributed to
Hmm.
things being about my environment or the patriarchy. Oh, I don't know how it happened, but there is no doubt that I have learned to prioritize somebody else's experience of me over my own experience of me.
Right. How many times do we spend busting our asses miserable because we're trying to make things wonderful for other people? And how much hardship do we bring on and do we endure trying to facilitate ease and flow for other people? And our brains are so good at deciding that those things don't matter and that what we're feeling is lying to us, and that we shouldn't rely on that because we're just emotional, we're just whatever, unreliable. And so we're looking for external cues about what we should be doing, how we should be, and all of that. But our bodies, we can't really fully ignore. You can ignore, I mean, I'm pretty good at ignoring pain to a degree, which is probably why it always seems like I go from nothing to everything,
Uh-huh.
because it crosses the threshold where I can't ignore it anymore, and it was probably actually there all along, and
Right.
I would just gotten very good at ignoring it or just dealing with it and moving through it. So it's just really, I know we're not alone. And I don't want to see you getting to that place that you are missing out on things that matter to you because you're too busy ignoring things that don't actually matter, but that your brain is telling you matter to somebody else. And maybe they do matter to somebody else, because that's one of the challenges too, is that when you change how you're operating, your relationships necessarily change. And
Mhm.
the relationships that are dependent on you not having a self don't fare well. Some of, like, the really solid relationships can get rocky and then settle in to the new normal with the both selves present and taking up the same amount of space. But a lot of relationships don't
Yeah.
navigate those waters very well. I think that's why our bodies have to do it, because they're like, okay, you can't ignore this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the time. I'm feeling the brakes pumping more frequently than they used
Mhm.
to. And it's this time of our lives that, whether we like it or not, it is time to look at the things that never served us. Well, I don't
Yeah.
know, haven't been serving us for a while, because I do think that as children, when you are in a closed environment like that, you gotta figure it
Mhm.
out. And that's one of the reasons I really like internal family systems, is because it helps us to understand these parts of us that got stuck.
Yeah. This
They got
served a really important role, especially when you're in a place where you don't have a lot of power.
Exactly. Yeah. And very minimal choices. Very minimal
Mhm.
environmental choices, very minimal internal resources, right? You don't know who the heck you are. You don't know anything other than to look to the adults for food, clothing, love, basic needs. And we do what we have to do in those environments. And it's so common for these parts to continue to be really loud voices in our systems. Um, 45 years later, where they have information and they're valuable, but they deserve an opportunity to grow up as well, because who is that little part now? Like, who would she evolve to become? What beautiful skills and innate abilities would she bring to the internal system? Not even the world, right? Like, just the internal
Mhm.
experience, if she were able to grow up
Yeah.
and
To
believe
mature.
that. Yeah, yeah. And understand that she doesn't have to live that way anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like we're gonna have to circle back to this, because I can't process that quickly. These are heavy things that I'm feeling
Yeah.
that I'm gonna need to work through, and we'll come back to it, because I don't have the answers right now. I just am really clear, thanks to you helping to highlight, and my body saying, "Girlfriend, you gotta figure this out, because I've got my foot on the brake and I'm not scared to use it." And it's needing attention, and I know I can figure it out and feel through it. It's just it's heavy. I can
Mhm.
feel that this has so much history, and I know I'm not alone. I get text messages from my family members, and obviously I see it in session, and our tendency as women to carry everybody else's needs above our own,
Mhm.
is it's a rampant illness, and it becomes really evident in midlife.
Yeah. When you have so many things, when we're like the sandwich generation.
Mm. And we're called, so I think yes, all of that is true. We're the sandwich generation. We have so many things, my life is beautifully full. And I really do believe it's so important for us to continue to hold all of that and the awareness that we are being called to something greater right now. We have the opportunity. Things are getting so uncomfortable that it is pushing us
Oh, yeah.
into the discomfort that requires change,
Yes.
or we fall asleep, right?
And that's one of the things that, as much as I don't want you to have to go through all the stuff that I went through last year, it's 12 days in the hospital and all that. In some ways I'm really grateful for it,
Mhm.
because that third trip to the emergency room that led to my second hospital stay, it was in the emergency room in between, doses of heavy duty IV pain meds,
Yeah.
that I said to Kyle, this has to change. My life is killing me and things have to change.
Yeah.
And it became so clear to me, my health, my family, my business, in that order. I've told you before, I've stepped from the hospital bed, stepped down from multiple things that I'm on. There's a couple that are jumping to my mind right now that might need to get the axe as well, because clearly I'm not where I need to be yet. So in some ways I'm grateful for the stuff that I've gone through, because it has given me a lot more clarity. I didn't go swimming today, and I had competing priorities that were within that list of like my health, my family, my business. But I know that today I needed to skip my swim. I'm going to go do something else later so I can still take care of my health, but take care of other things that were going to be such a stressor that would cause my health to be far worse as a result of not tending to these couple other things that just needed to get taken care of. And so it's a lot easier for me now when I'm starting to feel the stress to build up, to look at the list that's dictating my life instead of my internal knowing, and say, what of these things actually matter? What are the things that I have to do today? And if they don't have to get done on a day, especially if I'm having a harder day, they don't get done. And so for me, I don't think I've ever gotten paralyzed with something like that at the top of the stairs. And we keep going back to this because it's just a metaphor for all the
Yeah,
things that it's
absolutely.
literally a metaphor of all the things that you're trying to carry and all of the ways that you're trying to do it perfectly, and the things you're trying to carry that aren't yours or that are somebody else's responsibility that you've decided to take on, and trying to do somebody else's responsibility as perfectly as you possibly can, and crammed in with all the other things. Sometimes having loud enough alarm systems that we can start to recognize so much of the stuff that we allow ourselves to be stressed out by just don't matter.
Yeah.
But would it really have mattered if there was a dirty dish up there for a couple more days?
No.
Would it really matter if my family had to go out to eat for dinner one night because I don't have the time to cram in a grocery shopping trip and other things that only I can do and has to be done by me today, or that I just don't feel well enough to do? We should stop saying this, right? We should stop saying that we need to have a certain amount of discomfort. It's coming back around full circle to the why can't we just be okay being okay? Why do we have to have a certain amount of discomfort that we can actually listen to ourselves? Why is it, just a life of extremes without some steady Betty in the middle of just feeling okay, not feeling like we need to escape our existence to feel okay?
I mean, I think the discomfort comment, I hear what you're saying. In terms of midlife is
There just
just
are so many things that we have to do.
is happening. Yeah, it's just happening, being in
Yeah.
midlife. And that's forcing us to have to look at our priorities. And,
Yeah.
for me, one of the things that I really struggle with is letting go of things that really feel important to me or matter to me. And I was just having this half epitome. I don't think I'm fully there yet, but
Yeah.
recognizing if I conceptualize opening this space for something bigger and more beautiful beyond my wildest dreams, because I do think that that is what this midlife is about. I know that it's hard to think about when we are trudging through the day to day and the tremendous weight that we all carry in so many different ways. But I do think that opening space at this time in our lives is welcoming something really extraordinary.
If
That,
we can be protective and not fill it immediately.
yes, yes, opening and allowing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Which on paper sounds really easy, but is not in real life. And allowing for what is meant to be in that space
Yeah.
to come in. I think it's supposed to be extraordinary. And I think that may be true for men. I know a lot less about that than I know about women, but I think that as women, given that we are the species that, or the gender that the species, sometimes it does feel like we are a different species,
Mhm.
the gender that can create life. We have the same things that make midlife so complex for us as women are the
Mhm.
things that bring tremendous value to the human experience. And I
Yeah.
think that in the transition, as our hormones are shifting yet again, there is an opportunity for something magnificent to happen.
Mm.
And that if I focus more on that, on the magic that I can open space for, then maybe I will have less of an attachment to the things that I'm holding on to that I know aren't working that well for me anymore.
Yeah.
It reminds me of this book, Haggitude. Have you heard? I think I may have mentioned it to you.
I think you've mentioned it to me, yeah. I haven't read it.
Yeah. It's kind of a mystical, but also historical recounting of this midlife experience. It was written by Sharon Blackie, I believe. We'll put that in the notes, and it it just brings awareness to what wonderful things are we capable of,
Mhm.
could begin to take form if we allow and if we make space
Yeah.
for something like that to happen.
I wanna circle back to something that is stuck in my brain that is basically me trying to counter a statement that I said that is a practical exercise, I think, for me that maybe will benefit you or any of our listeners, that I keep saying, "Why do we allow? Why do we allow? Why do we allow? Or why do we do this to ourselves?" And the reality is we don't control a lot of the things that we are going through in midlife, right? And so there are things that we allow and that we can choose to set down, but there's some things that we can't set down. As you said, like sometimes it just keeps coming at us. And I remember when you said that, it made me think of a time a couple years ago where I was chatting with a friend about just the stuff that just kept coming at me and at her and all of these things. And we made jokes that were like not really jokes about how sometimes in midlife you're taking a break from the hard by doing a different hard thing. That's just, so it's just a shift in the
Mhm.
hard thing you're having to deal with. And that aren't necessarily things that you can choose. I mean, we have a choice in everything, but that most people are not likely to not choose, right? Like taking care of your parents as they are aging or needing help and support through surgeries, taking care of your child, taking care of your work, taking care of your home, all of the things that we're responsible for, that just who else is going to do it but you and maybe one or two other people. So I think that there's this weird combination of both things that we can control and things we can't control. And I think part of the challenge is humans, or at least for me, is recognizing which thing it actually is and leaning in the right way. Right. And I feel like we get it wrong so frequently. And when we do, we're not allowing, like when we get it wrong and we're trying to control things that we can't control, or feeling like we are victims of something we do have control over, that takes so much mental space and so much energy that would make it even harder. For me, at least, it makes it harder. Like the more I'm trying to incorrectly control things or misattributing control, the less space I have to allow the next thing to come in. I'm not a big planner. Never been a big planner. I'm more of a go with the flow, trust my intuition, next right step, and then let's see. This is what we're going to do, and then let's see from there what happens. And I have not felt as much connection to that. And that's probably something for us to chat about an entire different
Mhm.
episode on, is the connection to intuition and the
You gotta have space. You gotta have space and time for it.
yes, I think that's really what it comes down to, is that if you don't have emptiness
Mhm.
in your day, in your brain, just not even necessarily emptiness, just not like structured, like control, tight, grasping energy.
Rigid.
Yeah,
Yes.
that you can't get things, you don't have the capacity to see what could be or to see
Mhm.
solutions that are right next to you, but you're so rigidly focusing on this is how it should be or this is what I need to do that the solution, like I can just go downstairs without all of these things, might not be available to you
It's
until your
wild.
body is literally forces you through paralysis
Mhm, mhm.
to find it.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild. Think about just the structure of our days. Our bodies aren't going into fight or flight because of bears and,
Yeah, it's going into
natural.
fight or flight because of reminders and text messages and a schedule and a to-do
Yep.
list.
A packed schedule
Mhm.
without time to go outside and breathe fresh air or, put your feet in the on soil. It's
Yeah,
not giving us any flexibility to connect organically because
yeah.
we have to schedule everything. And so our nervous systems are stuck in this fight or flight state where we are pumping out all of this adrenaline and hormones to keep us upright through it all because our body thinks we have to survive it. And of
So it's
course,
making our brains think that getting the dishes downstairs stacked on all the other things that I don't even remember what you mentioned. Yeah.
is exactly what it feels like in that moment. It's a life or death situation. And it sounds ridiculous, but I think, maintaining that metaphor for how that applies in so many different aspects of our lives takes us back
Mm.
to how in those moments can we shift into a breath, right? To slow down the fight or
So I'm
flight.
gonna offer this to you. I might have said this to you at some point in our many conversations we've had over the many years we've known each other. But it's a thing that I need to lean into a little bit more again than I have been. I do regularly remind myself when I'm starting to feel that stress about something that really doesn't matter. If I'm if we're running late to swimming lessons or to soccer
Mhm.
practice
Mhm.
or martial arts, I remind myself, I don't need to create stress in my daughter for this thing that doesn't really matter if she's a
Yes.
few minutes late. Like, yes, I will verbalize it is important to be on time because it shows people that you respect them and their time. And it will be okay if we're a few minutes late.
Yes.
And that I don't need to create anxiety in her from being like rush, 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 rush because I had poor planning with my time or things that were completely out of our control led to us being a little bit late for something. And so that's just an example that comes to mind. But one of the things that on my worst, hardest days, that gives me the most relief somehow is I will pause and I will look at my to-do list or my pile of clothes or my bookshelf that's a disaster or whatever it happens to be. And I will ask myself, will anybody remember this in the entire trajectory of human existence? Do any of these things matter? Does any of it matter? And it doesn't. I will not be remembered in human history. Nobody will be writing history books about me. I will go down nowhere, other than who knows? I will probably in a couple of generations, I will not even be a memory, right?
Mhm.
And so that for some reason gives me a huge sense of relief. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. We're all stardust and we're going to be stardust again. And none of these things, these electrons that are also from stardust telling me I need to do
Yeah.
something that's not really, it doesn't matter.
I love that. You gave two really great examples of a micro and a macro. Like the
Hmm.
micro, I find so much relief when I connect with my child and wanting him to experience ease, which is
Hmm.
exactly what you're
Hmm.
saying, right? We don't want to infuse them with anxiety. And so when I'm thinking about the responsibility of getting to practice on time, of, doing all the things the way that we are supposed to do, and I'm super stressed in traffic. And I think in that moment, I am in this car with my child. We are sharing this moment. That's micro.
Hmm.
Nothing else matters. We're going to get there. It's going to be fine. Or the macro of in two
Nothing
generations,
matters. Nothing matters.
nothing matters. Literally, nothing matters on that scale.
Yeah. So if you're going to spend time not doing things that in the big picture of life don't matter, you might as well have it be something that actually matters to you right now. There's plenty of things that feel like they matter to me, but that are not connected to what really matters to me. And so we just gotta remind each other and practice on a better, bigger, more consistent scale with our to-do list that you can't possibly fit in a single screen, that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
I might take the mantra of Stardust with me. Is that what you called it?
Yes, maybe that's just what we need to be. We're all like, we are made of Stardust. Everything will go back to Stardust. All the electrons floating around. Yes, Stardust. So maybe we just need to say, that'll be our code word to each other. When we're feeling stressed out, all we have to say is Stardust.
Yep.
And we'll know what that means.
Yeah. It's helpful to have simple, reminders or tools like that.
Well, and it also
Instead of
means
having to go through the mental gymnastics of it all, right? Like getting to a place where
Stardust. We're going to have a lot of explaining to do with Eliza, because we're going to be sending text messages, and she wasn't here for it, unfortunately. Hopefully she's getting her own messages about Stardust where she is at her wonderful situation that she's doing today.
I have a feeling she's got a lot of that going on. I think she's going to come back and slide right into exactly where we are. We're going to meet, and she'll bring a lot.
That's the way it works with us. So she's going to come and tell us her version of this, and we're going to be like, oh, Stardust. And we're like, what? Let's leave it with Stardust today.
Love that. Yep. And I've got some things to circle back to. And the Stardust it's an easy win to take with me. Thank you for that. All right.
I'm so happy to have gotten my break that I took for myself, and so happy to also be back chatting with you. And I can't wait for all three of us to be back together again next week.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you back. And next week, everyone's back. All right.
Yes. All right. Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Right. Bye, guys.
If our messy is your kind of messy, we'd love for you to rate, review, and follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
We'd also love to know what's on your mind. If you were to join us, what would we be talking about? Email us at messymidlifepodcast@gmail.com or message us on Instagram or TikTok.